apologies ahead of time. This is going to be a kind of low quality video, a little bit of ASMR because people are like sleeping, I guess, in the house. And so, if it's a little bit quiet, I apologize ahead of time for that. But let's go ahead and do the presentation on my final paper project. Alright, so the article that I am going to be analyzing, the description of the artifact. So I am going to be analyzing kind of that final scene from the ride, Pirates of the Caribbean, specifically the Disneyland one, because I prefer that one. And it's kind of like there's a bunch of pirates and they've all like raided this village and everything is burning at this point, and they're all kind of like drunk out of their minds, and they're like standing on either side of your boat and they're like shooting at each other and basically trying to blow each other up, but they're still having like a really good time during this whole thing. And so I'm gonna go ahead and try to figure out what the exact message of that is through cluster criticism. And so I would describe the author as, I do believe that Walt Disney himself personally oversaw this, and so he, as an artist, and then all of the artists that he hired to build the ride, to make the ride along the way, there's just tons of people who worked on this ride, all included as artists. And so I guess that Disney would be the main author. And then its target audience would probably be guests of all ages. And that's what's really interesting, is that it is not just like targeted at like an adult audience, even though, you know, if you think about it, like a pirate raiding like this town is probably like not super lighthearted, but they make it so that it's a fun time for kids and old people, young people. Its target audience is basically America, and also visitors from other countries. And the kairos / the content that makes it apropos. So what I find that makes this an appropriate artifact to analyze is the fact that it was created with a specific rhetorical purpose. So when they were building this ride, they had in mind a message and a story that they wanted to tell to the audience, and they had the way that they presented and placed everything in that ride. It's kind of like a painting, you know, like when we analyze the paintings and we step back and we're able to look at it and say, oh, well, this is over here, this is over there, and then take those like elements throughout the whole thing and find the purpose of the original authors through that. And so I thought that would be really interesting to do. And I'm also, because a big part of my honors thesis is theme park rides, and is kind of just all the different senses that they utilize, I'm also hoping to be able to put some olfactory and tactile sensory stuff in with that as a certain cluster. And so we're gonna see how that works out. It should be interesting. And then I'm going to be using cluster criticism. And so even before I started this project, just kind of in my mind, I really was already analyzing this as a cluster, because of the fact that it's an individual scene, and so within the ride, that individual scene is kind of its own cluster. I don't know if I'm going to get too far into that when I go into the paper, but rather analyzing just that exact scene and the way that things are placed and the way that things are arranged to make it so that the audience is not only excited by it, but also attracted to this message that they're proposing. And So by using cluster criticism, I thought that that would be the best, because cluster criticism gives you a really, really good idea of what the original author was thinking when they created this. And so I thought that would be really cool. And then also, since there's so much stuff like documented about the actual Pirates of the Caribbean and its creators, I also thought that that would be kind of interesting to maybe see later on, probably more so for my thesis than for this paper, but to find out whether the original creators of the ride, whether their idea of what they've created kind of lines up with my analysis. And so far, I don't have anything written down. I've just been doing a lot of big brain thinking time. And so far, my analysis has gone very well. I'm looking forward to applying that more so to the actual study of cluster criticism. And so I'm looking forward to look at how Kenneth Burke maybe would attempt this and be able to dive deeper into it than just me analyzing it with my own eyes and my own deterministic screen, my own experience, but rather finding a way to do this that's less subjective. And so that's going to be very interesting for me, because a lot of the projects that we've done so far have been kind of subjective. And so being able to approach this from a more objective and factual and method-based area would be pretty cool for me. And then I do believe that the results of this project will come out well. As I said, I don't really have a lot of results yet other than my own. My own result is believing that the message of this final Pirates of the Caribbean is that while life may be short, it's a good time, and to make the best of bad situations. And when you get yourself in a pickle, just go ahead and have fun with it, because, YOLO, I guess. And so that's kind of my own personal analysis, or at least what I believe to have seen. And also that, if you live a crazy life, then everybody's going to tell your stories like forever is also another thing. And so it's going to be really interesting seeing how actually doing an in-depth analyzation through cluster criticism and through a more technical analysis, and see whether or not those results will change or not, and seeing just how much that will change. And so, and I do believe that through a more in-depth and a more objective analysis, I am going to come away with a greater understanding of the ride itself, which hopefully will be a good platform to work better for my honors thesis as well. And so I'm really considering this kind of like a big old stepping stone. And hopefully after this, I feel better about my complete understanding of rhetorical criticism and my understanding of my objective on which way I want to go with my honors thesis. And hopefully that will jumpstart that, because I need 10 pages done by the end of this next week, and we haven't even started yet. So yeah, worried about that, but we will see. Alrighty, so thank you for listening, and that is my presentation.